live now at the New Haven Free Public Library. Welcome. We're just going to jump right into this.
Yeah, let's do it.
Yeah, so we're really excited. I'm just going to start with, I am Giulia Gambale. I am the entrepreneur in residence at the New Haven Free Public Library up until the end of June. We've been doing programming here. My office hours, I have 3 days where I have office hours. So I'm here on Tuesdays from 11:30 to 1:30, on Thursdays from 6 to 8 p.m. for those of you who have to go to work or pick up kids from school or anything like that. And then Friday from 2 p.m. until 4 p.m. We've been covering a lot of topics, from business taxes to budgeting to marketing. And today I'm super excited because I am being joined by Raheem Nelson. And Raheem wears many, many hats and many suits, but many, which we'll also talk about today. But I wanted to talk specifically about influencer marketing and how that works. And Raheem is a perfect person to talk to about this because you've been on both sides of that. So I'm going to let you introduce yourself, and then we'll just roll right into the discussion. And then I have my phone with me so that I can see if there's any questions that come in on the Facebook.
Great.
So let's go.
All right. So my name is Raheem Nelson. I'm an illustrator based in New Haven, Connecticut. I'm also a photographer, and I am a menswear influencer. So today I'm going to be talking about just the things I've learned along the way being an influencer, and what that looks like for me is being an influencer in fashion and also in art and in photography, and then just kind of having all of that be housed in my wheelhouse. So I can have gigs and attract clients and brands that want to work with me that are in the fashion realm and then also in the art realm, and then that has a lot of overlap. So I've talked to clients before, and they've been like, oh, well, you model these suits and you style yourself. And then you can also create fashion illustrations on top of that.
Well, yeah.
So it's just many layers that kind of go along and hand in hand with working with brands. What I always try to look for is what does the brand need? What can I contribute to them?
Right.
And in exchange, they can either offer me a product, and I might want to receive that, or they can give me monetary value. Where I'll start with is a brand that I've worked with in the past called the Tie Bar.
Yeah.
And the Tie Bar is incredible. They make menswear for very affordable prices. And to get their business, what I did was I utilized Twitter. That's what I did to start. And I was wearing, and I still wear suits, but I was kind of finding my way in menswear and what I like to wear, discovering my style and discovering myself in business. And so I would put together these OOTDs, outfits of the day. And then I would buy Tie Bar product, so I was passionate about the brand even before I was working with them. And I tagged them on Twitter, and I was doing it Monday through Friday, every day for probably 4 or 5 months or something. And then they acknowledged me. They would like it, they'd retweet it, and then they reached out. I said hey, we want to do some work with you.
Yeah.
So it was almost like a job interview. It's I'm showing you I can put the looks together. I'm showing you I can do the fashion illustrations. What can we create together? And I think it's always better to have partnerships with brands if you're actually passionate about the brand.
Right.
And that's one of the brands I'm very passionate about. And it just turned into a great relationship, still ongoing, where I did some fashion illustrations for one of their campaigns. And then I ended up working in the retail store. So seeing,
so there was a lot of movement around with that.
And that's a lot of moving pieces.
That was pre-COVID too. So that was many, this is years long relationship.
Years ago. Yeah, exactly. And what I really appreciate about that relationship I was building with the Tie Bar, I was really able to just get deeper into the fashion world, which is something I want to accomplish anyway. And having that relationship, meeting other types of influencers and getting inspired by them, resulted in me being able to attend New York Fashion Week, because I'd had this experience, and I was, working with the Tie Bar, and they noticed that. Hey, we want you to come to New York Fashion Week, do some fashion illustrations for us. So got the free ticket, got the work, and just being in, you know, that crowd
In
and
that space.
yeah, in that space. And it was amazing because there was a gap where they didn't have an in-person fashion show because of COVID, but they remembered who I was and they invited me after that. So I
After
was
that,
able to
yeah.
like still do my thing because just being consistent with the output that I'm doing and the brands that I'm working with.
Yeah, and that really speaks a lot to two different things. You know, I'm always going to go off on a tangent.
Yeah, well, let's go. So, yeah.
Then the other thing was one, this is like an ongoing relationship that kind of moves around.
Yeah.
You know, so I think that when people think of the word influencer, right, they think of somebody who is, you know, suddenly has millions of followers. It's
Right.
like, how the heck did that even happen?
Right.
And they just jump on the scene. It's like, there they are, they're an influencer. Where what I wanted to show here was that A, it is possible. B, and like you said, that it's something where it's like, it's best to work with a brand that you believe in and that you
Yeah.
can freely and easily speak about their brand promise, and they recognize that.
Yeah, exactly.
And that it does, you know, it does take work. I remember earlier in social media, one of the big things that people would say is, or ask me is, how do I go viral?
Mhm.
And I would always ask, well, why do you want to go
Yeah,
viral? Like,
exactly.
what's going to happen?
Right.
What do you think is going to happen after you
Right,
go
right.
viral? There is going to be work that needs to be done.
Yeah.
So, yeah, let's continue with
Yeah,
what
it's
that
funny
means.
that you say that too, because I had a breakthrough in something on Twitter. You know, I had gotten married now and everything, and I had a reception at Art Space at New
Right.
Haven, which was spectacular, and that resulted in me getting additional work. So for me, my wife and I look at it like, well, you know, we had this great wedding, it was a lot of fun. Like, how can we market this? How can we brand
Right.
it? You know, like branding our relationship in a way, you know, which is amazing. It's fun, and we want to share it with people and make a difference that way.
Yeah.
So I was on Twitter and I just saw one of the Netflix accounts, you know, called Strong Black Lead, just saying, oh, you've got a lot of single people finding love in art galleries. And that's exactly how I met my wife. I was like, well, let me say something about this. So I just casually like inserted one of our wedding photos in the art gallery, and then they picked up on it. And like, so now like it has, I don't know how many impressions, like maybe 23,000 impressions, and
Yeah.
like all these people interacting with it. So one thing I try to look for is like, who can I interact with that's aligned with my brand values, and how
Yeah.
can I benefit their conversation too, so I can be a part of that conversation and
Yeah.
really shift the conversation too.
Oh my goodness. I have those words. Right. Because
Yeah.
you're talking about aligning with values. And you know, a lot of times you will see, I know when I'm talking about brands that we're often talking about that. What does your brand stand for?
Right.
And then for you, it's like, what does your personal brand stand for?
Mhm.
And then there's so many avenues that you can take once you understand what
Yeah.
your brand is,
Exactly.
right? And you're talking about your personal brand and then the brand of the relationship. And you said something that really warms my heart a lot too, is providing for like, this is a relationship that is attainable. This is a, you know, and I think like when you're talking about friends, it seems, I mean, sorry, when you're talking about brands, when they're talking about the brand, it seems so surface, so superficial. But really just what it is relationship. It is a conversation. It can be a very deep conversation. And then it makes that work so much more just.
Yeah, completely agree.
Yeah.
The best jobs I've had have been off of relationships that I've built up over months and sometimes years. Speaking of which, you know, the Arts and Ideas mural that I have on the Central Workers, that went up and I was proud of it. I loved it. Working with them was phenomenal. And what I'm also noticing is that the impact that this mural has had with people and the fact that it's like been up way past Labor Day. You know, the
Right.
Arts for Labor project happened, and then the work is still up, and I'm still marketing it
Yeah.
with them. And then like, you know, I met up with somebody from Arts and Ideas at an art show recently, and you know, it's just been mutually beneficial, me directing people to go check
Okay.
out the murals, which are on 195 Church Street currently, and then them, you know, reposting on Instagram and Twitter and stuff like that. So it's like, hey,
Yeah.
we've got a local artist that did this work, and here's what it stands for.
So we have a question. Oh, good. Okay. And the question is, how do you become associated with a brand of interest? And you touched
Mhm.
upon that a little bit.
Mhm.
Are you able to kind of like enumerate some of the ways?
Yeah.
Because I think there's different ways to do that.
Right.
Yeah.
Yeah, sure. So I'll just talk about what's worked for me. I think what's worked with me, for starters, what I tried to do was, you know, send a direct message to companies and stuff like that.
Mhm.
That hasn't really worked so much for me because there's not really like a pre-existing relationship.
Right.
And that's what you want to be building upon to work with a brand in any means. So I will post something, for instance, like I'm wearing a combatant gentleman suit.
Mhm.
If I post it on social media, I'll tag them, and then I'll do it consistently. Like, oh, this person enjoys our brand, and you know, this person has made our brand part of
Yeah.
their mission, stuff like that. And brands will notice that. Like, it's not just like a one-off thing. Like, I've
Right.
got these Warby Parker glasses I wear all the time. They're aware of the work that I'm doing. Tie
Right.
bar socks. So it's like consistency. Um, Being aligned with the brand, mentioning the brand in like your posts or something like that, and then like even like an education piece on it. It's like I wear Warby Parker because it's like a retro frame, and
Yeah.
I like what they stand for, and I like the price point. So the brand like might notice that, like, hey, like this person's writing copy, this person's advertising. I think this is somebody I want to work with. So I
Yeah.
think stuff like that goes a long way. Like if you're educated on the brand, you're passionate about the brand, and you're open to working with them.
Yeah. So what I've seen is, or what I've heard you say, and also in your stories, is you were building a story, you have consistency,
Yeah.
and those are two big things to aligning yourself with a particular brand.
Mhm.
Um, and then that education piece, I think too. I think that again, what you're saying is, if you can educate on this is why I do this,
Yeah.
this is how it aligns with the brand.
Mhm.
Um, and then this is how somebody else can kind of do that same thing.
Right.
Yeah.
Yeah, exactly. And the other piece I'll say too is having like a job or a gig, and then finding a way to like get that brand re-involved into something and bring
Mhm.
them back into what you're doing in the conversation. And the perfect example I have are a series of murals I did in New Orleans in probably like
Yep.
2016.
Yep.
And the way this came about is like I was in Los Angeles at the time, on the tail end of another event that was in Palo Alto. I was like, oh, I'll go to Los Angeles. I've never been to Los Angeles. So I met up with a friend of mine, and she was like, oh, I might have a friend that is looking for some murals for his new sushi restaurant. I was like, all right, cool. So I did the job. I got done early. And when I was completing the murals, I not only put my website on it, I put like a hashtag on it as well.
I saw.
So
Yeah,
anybody that sees it is
Sees
gonna
it.
know who to contact.
Mhm.
So it probably happened like just before COVID and everything. I contacted the restaurant. I was like, hey, like I've got so many behind the scenes photos of me working on the mural. Like, is that something you can share on your social media channel?
Yeah.
And like they went for it. I got like 2 posts out of it, and then like additional business, all because I thought to follow up with them
Yeah.
and continue building that relationship.
Yeah, so in answering that question is how do you align, is making sure that you follow up as well. Once you have
follow-up is
that one
great.
connection, so you have your storytelling, you have your connect, continuing connecting, the education piece, many different ways that you can educate on that particular brand from your perspective,
Mhm.
and then following up with them you're proactive, like you don't just
Yeah.
follow up, you're
Right.
like, okay, you know what, I have this idea about
Yeah.
another way that we can
Exactly.
do this thing.
Yep. Yep.
And that's great because to them it's just like, how much people have to get paid to come up with ideas,
Yeah. Uh-huh.
to continuously refresh from
Mhm.
marketing.
Yeah.
And if you're sitting there and you're like, you know what? I have this idea.
Mhm.
I'm gonna present this to you. What do you think of this?
Yeah.
You know, and it's something that's fresh and it's something that's new.
Mhm.
And if you have, again, that ongoing relationship, hoping we're answering this question,
Yeah.
you know, then you're continually building.
Mhm.
Okay, so then the next question is, can you review how to technically tag the brand on the various social media outlets?
Oh, okay.
Okay, yeah, that
Definitely.
makes sense.
Yeah.
You want to
Okay.
go for that?
Yeah, sure. So to start, I think they're all pretty similar, but I'll start with Facebook. With Facebook, what I usually do is there's an @ symbol on your phone, or if you're using a computer, at whatever that brand is. You type in the name, you should see a list and it should pop up, and then you're just confirming that. So if I wanted to tag the Thai bar, I would do at the Thai bar, or at Armani or something like that, whatever brand that I want to work with or that I'm currently working with.
Right.
And then they'll see it, they'll get a notification. Instagram is the same thing. You want to do the @ sign, and then you want to type in the brand.
Yeah.
You want to make sure that the brand is verified, especially if it's like a big brand that you want to work with, because sometimes you can run into these accounts that are pretending to be somebody else.
I was going to mention that. Yeah. So make sure that it has, oftentimes what he means by verified is it has like a blue check
Yeah.
mark it's usually blue check mark, but there's
Yeah,
a check
exactly.
mark that basically says, yes, this is the actual brand or
Yeah.
the actual personality.
Right, and it's verified.
Mhm.
Yeah. And then for Instagram, if you're posting a picture, they have an option where you can add a tag now. And then, again, just finding that account, making sure if it's verified if possible, and then just making sure that they're tagged in your photos. And I like to tag different brands on Instagram specifically. And when somebody, taps to check it out,
Yeah.
like you'll see that the glasses are Warby Parker, and then, the suit is Combatant Gentleman, and then, the sweater will be Amazon Fashion, so that people will be able to see what's tagged specifically, and it's not like this guessing game.
Right. And I just want to mention too, on the back end of the brand that's being tagged. So obviously, if it's like a really big brand, there's not somebody sitting at a desk going, "Oh, hey, look at this." Sometimes it may be.
Yeah.
In some instances, that may be the case.
Right.
However, we're getting the question.
Great.
Thank you.
Excellent.
Thank you. Thank you. In some cases, there's actually a platform that has all of the brand names, maybe the
Mhm.
tagline, keywords, where they're following, it's AI doing it,
Yeah.
doing the following, and then it'll pull that up and send a report. And I would say that the report or the notification is pretty immediate
Mhm.
in most cases, and then they have somebody who's following up. So you'll see, I know a lot of times, like, I'm not an influencer, but I am a complainer.
I'm
So-
pretty sure those are closely aligned.
So if I find that there is a problem with a particular brand, I'll be like, hey, brand, why is, my internet not working, or this product really wasn't that great.
Mhm.
You will see that there is a service or a help. So it'll be
Yeah.
like such and such brand service and such brand help, and they'll jump on that right
Mhm.
away. And again, it's not because somebody's sitting there scanning through, it's because they're getting the notifications like, hey, customer service person number whatever, go for it, go help this person.
Exactly.
So that's often what happens.
Mhm.
All right, I'm going to let you keep going with
Okay,
your
sure.
story. I'm
Sure,
going to make
sure,
sure.
definitely. So I also want to make sure I touch on being a brand and reaching out to influencers to work with you.
Mhm.
And the most recent story I have of that is working with the climate change nonprofit that's called 2030 or Bust.
Yeah.
And the founder's name is Lachlan Arts. It was great working with him. And he has finished up a tour of the country just talking about his climate change tour. So that was a lot of fun. What I was doing was helping out with social media marketing,
Mhm.
and I had an idea since he has a podcast program called the Global Warming Show,
Yep.
and he wanted to kind of like bridge the gap with like climate change and fashion and have a positive impact on the environment instead of a negative one. So I thought of the friends that I had made during my time at the Thai bar and all the work that I've done, and I want to bring them on board for that. It wasn't really necessarily a budget, and I was like, okay, what can I offer them that's going to be inspiring and have
Mhm.
them be able to like cross pollinate and cross promote,
About, yeah.
but getting the word out there. So what I came up with was like, hey, like why don't you be a guest on the program? You can
Right.
plug what you're doing, and then also talk a little bit about climate change, because sometimes there might not be a budget to like pay X amount of dollars for whatever. So
Mhm.
like in that case, I think a barter is really good to go. And I
Ah,
managed to get like 3, 4 of my friends to come on the program and talk about what they do, and then get like a boost, and they get like a video programming out of it as
yeah.
well that they can share out through the networks. So it's like it's beneficial. They're not necessarily getting paid, but they're getting that promotion, that exposure that they can monetize and then turn to something else.
Did you read the question? Because that's like the next question.
Is the next one?
It is pretty much. I'm like,
That's great.
I don't understand.
That's
So they're asking, what is your strategy for monetizing your influence status from tags or perhaps volunteer reviews of products? So
Oh, that's a good question.
yeah. So
Yeah.
I found that you have enumerated a couple of different ways. Like
Yeah.
some of them aren't outright like, thanks for mentioning our brand product. Here's some
Right.
money. So what are some of the ways that it can be monetized?
Got you. Yeah, it's a great question. So I think in terms of my social media brand strategy, I'm always thinking like, okay, I want to inform. I also want to monetize, but I don't want to like ever come off too strong in either category. Like, has to be a balance. Like, okay, this post is going to be about education. This post is going to be offering my services, and then just kind of like divvying that up throughout the week.
Yeah.
What I started doing with my art account, for instance, which is Raheem Nelson Art, just saying, okay, I'm available for interviews and artist talks,
Right.
and also workshops. So I'm working on a social, emotional, developmental art workshop. And then just being upfront with what the prices are, basically saying, oh, you can book me now for this.
Right.
And that makes it so if there's a brand that's interested in programming and have me come on, like the rates are right there. They know how to find me, know how to contact me. But that's not like the only thing I'm posting throughout the day. Because I
Right.
want to have it to be like just a bit of my personal life and then my professional life as well.
Yeah.
And having that come together. Because the other thing I want to touch on is just being authentic.
Yeah.
And like if you are just authentic on social media, like I think it results in a lot of great things, because like it's so easy to be fake on social media.
Mhm.
And like brands will pick up on that. It's like, all right, like we like what you're doing, but like it's not really 100% authentic.
Right.
And so like even like using Instagram stories, I'll try to like talk about some of the stuff I'm up to throughout the day. It's like I like to have my coffee after I work out. It might be between meetings. I might have some revisions to do on the project, and I might be doing like a home photo shoot in the studio. So like all those things get covered. So it's like not showing too much, but like showing just enough
Just
where it's
enough.
like, okay, I am a real person. Like this is
Yeah.
other stuff I'm up to, aside from doing the art and the photography and the fashion.
Yeah.
So I think that all helps with, just getting hired for stuff. They're hiring a real person.
Right. When you're talking about getting hired too, there's many ways that you had talked about whether and you kind of like flow through from, the Raheem Nelson art, the
Right.
Raheem Nelson style,
Yep.
the Raheem Nelson, social media and that sort of thing. So I think for you, and I think answering this question as well is just really knowing where your strengths are, what it is you enjoy doing, and what you want to continue to do, and what you actually do want to, monetize.
Yeah.
You want to continue to do digital art. You want to continue to do photography. You want to continue to, to do the styling and that sort of thing. So all of these things play into then where you want to align yourself with your brand. Yeah.
Yeah. It's really all about knowing myself. And this is something that I'm always developing. and, feeling as though now I have a strong knowledge of what I want to accomplish as an artist, as an influencer, and a photographer, and then, kind of doing the rebranding thing right now. It's
Yeah.
like I'm creating this business card where it's like art, menswear, photography, like those three. It's like, yeah, I'm doing a lot of things, but this is how I'm distilling it and making it digestible to people who discover me.
Right.
Instead of it's like, oh, well, he's doing so many things and, the branding's off and stuff like that. I just want
Right.
to keep it like simple.
So it
Simple
all
so
kind of
people
like
can follow
funnels
it.
in and filters through
Right.
what that brand is.
Mhm.
So that means that there's things that you definitely say no to. I mean, yes to, but then there are things that you definitely say no to.
Yeah, you're reading my mind. Again, it goes back to being aligned with the brand. Like I get offers from brands all the time. I'm like, I don't really wear that much jewelry aside from like my wedding ring. I got my watch and stuff.
Yeah.
But like I've had offers from jewelry brands. It's like it's great. But like that's not really my focus. Like I try to
Right.
just keep things really succinct and curated. Like
Mhm.
I'm able to have fun with it and everything, but I got a strategy. And one of my mentors was telling me, and this is when I had like a Instagram that was just like unified, where it's the art, photography, and the menswear into one account. And
Yeah.
that didn't really work because like the algorithm's going crazy. It's like, oh, I don't really know what this person is marketing. So he was like, oh, I think you should have 3 accounts, like one for your art, one for your fashion, and one for your photography. And then when I've done that, like I've got offers from this sector that's coming from the menswear, offers from this
Yeah.
for the art, and then this for the photography. So there's a separation. And then if you go to my website, it's like you can find links to all that stuff.
All of the
And it's
stuff.
just
Yeah.
the 3 pages and the 3 disciplines instead of just trying to like cram everything into one
Into
account.
one. Yeah. No, that's so true. And I remember that was a big question, and I think it still is in social media is, do I make, people will ask, do I make a Facebook page for my personal brand? If I have a company, but then I brand myself,
Right.
as, a person that does X,
Mhm.
and I think that you touched upon when that became a question,
Right. Yeah.
right? And then you had to answer that.
Yeah.
So there's definitely a lot of self-development, really.
Mhm. It really is. Exactly.
Constantly, and treating yourself as a brand. Again, I think the the image of an influencer
Mhm.
is just really, really very superficial.
Yeah.
And it's just for the most part, it's not.
Right. It's really not. There's a lot that goes into it.
Yeah.
Mhm.
So, and then it's a lot of work, obviously. Like
Yeah.
you're doing it all the time.
I absolutely love it. Like it's hard to turn my brain off.
Yeah. And then the investment that it takes as well. Do you want to talk a little bit about the investment? I know that you made somewhat of an investment just recently too, when you decided, okay, I want to have a studio available to myself in the home. Yeah.
Definitely. Yeah, it's a great point. So what I realized specifically with the fashion piece of what I do is that usually I get my photos with photographers, and it's fun. I work with Lee Busby, for instance, who takes amazing photos of me on a regular basis. And I didn't want to feel restricted to just waiting on a photographer to work with me. So what I started doing was creating these home photo shoots, and my wife and I got a really nice camera, and then we have a backdrop and lighting equipment, and we've basically taken one of our spare rooms and turned it into a photography studio. So now I can like come home from work, and I'm like, if I like what I'm wearing, for instance, I can just set up the tripod, set up my iPhone, make sure the lighting looks good, and then I can create content that I'm going to use for like the next week,
Right.
because I want to make sure I'm always like a week or 2 weeks ahead.
Yeah.
So it's worth that investment to make sure I can be self-sufficient as a brand and make sure I'm taking the pictures, and like I look at trends, but I think I like to just curate and create for myself so that it's unique to what I like to wear, and then just making sure I capture that. I don't want to. I think in that way I'm a bit impatient. Like I want to make sure everything is set up and ready to go. So if I can just like come home, take a few pictures, and then also creating reels is really important for Instagram as well. And I try to like look at the music I can use, and more just like a 30-second like runway walk. I can like get that edited quickly
Yeah.
and get that out the next day. So it's really great to have that studio set up.
I've
where
been
you just knock it
noticing
out.
more reels on your brand.
Yeah, it's so much fun too. I was like, oh, I gotta do all this work to do reels. So like there's a little bit of resistance at first. And
Yeah.
then I saw how the other influencers were doing it. It's like, oh, it's like, how am I gonna do it for myself? Because I want to make it unique to me.
Right.
Like I just put out one today that was like holiday looks and taking two
I
suits and
saw.
switching them up. And
Yeah.
it looks like there are two of me walking through, the room. And so it's like I'm just wearing a lot of hats and creating these reels. Like I'm directing myself, and I'm doing all the edits, and I'm finding the music that works. So it's like making these little mini movies that people can check out. It's like, okay, this is how he styled his clothes, and this is how he create the video too. It's so much fun.
It sounds like a lot of fun.
It is.
Sounds like things that, oh, there's more questions. I see
Great,
more
let's
questions.
go. More questions. More questions.
Okay.
And this is the one that's just follow up.
Okay, so this, okay, cool. All right, so the question is, where can you find out information about your influencer startup
What price point if approached?
approached by a brand?
Oh, that is a great question.
Okay, I'm gonna
Yeah.
let you go.
Okay.
Yeah, with that.
So the way I try to do this, I apply the same ideology across what I do as an artist, as an influencer, and as a photographer. I always do the research ahead of time. Like if a brand reaches out, like, hey, we want you to do this, this, and this, or create this illustration, you can definitely ask what their budget is. Before you do that, like just go on Google and check out what the rates are for what you're interested in. Like if you're an illustrator, check out the rates for what influencers are charging, and then how many years correspond to that. Like if you had like 1 to 5 years in the game, you're going to charge a certain rate. If you're working with a small brand, you might charge a certain rate. If you're working with a bigger brand, you might charge a certain rate. So it's good to like do a lot of research about that. If you have a mentor you can ask, that's also really helpful. So you're not just going off a website and a collection of websites and stuff like that. You're actually talking to somebody in your field. So again, I would suggest that as well. Just heavy research. If you have a mentor or somebody else that you admire that's in your field, go to them as well, and then approach the brand. And they might not even accept your first offer, but I would always say like go a little higher than you're comfortable with. So if you need to come down in price, you can do that, and just have that
With
flexibility
everything.
instead of starting at whatever you're comfortable with and then going down from there, and then feeling like you don't get your value. It's building that relationship, and it's going off of industry rates and just saying what you expect for your time and how much you put into whatever your field is.
That's huge too. Just in general.
Yeah.
Like,
yeah, it relates to like everything.
Start, when you're negotiating for yourself, is start high.
Exactly.
Start way higher.
Yep.
Way
absolutely.
higher. Way up there high.
And you come down.
So the
second
second, I think this is a follow-up. Is it possible to be successful as an influencer with just social media accounts if you don't necessarily want a website?
Okay. I think it's very possible. I think it all depends on the kind of person. I think it's a person-to-person basis. For me, I definitely love having a website where I can direct people to, but you don't necessarily need to do that. You can have like just an Instagram or Twitter and say like, hey, you can find my content here.
Yeah.
So it's very possible to do that. I think it just depends on the type of person you are, and maybe like what you're marketing and branding yourself as, and what your creative field is. But it's definitely
what it
more than
looks
possible to do that.
And I would say too, I'm going to add, just because I've worked in the social media sphere for so long, that I would say make sure that the way that you utilize the social media accounts that you're on. So if you're on Facebook, to utilize that Facebook business page, like really like make it look as much like your website as possible. So your cover image is to be really well branded. If you have kind of like a little logo or an icon or what you look like as the profile image, and then as people are reading, that it tells the story. So as they go onto your page and start scrolling through, they should get a really good idea of who you are as a brand. So between Facebook and LinkedIn, you have much more kind of leeway to do that.
Yeah.
If you're on Instagram, and that's different,
Mhm.
right? Because you don't have a scrolling page the same way,
Right.
or the profile, they don't really give you a lot of room for a profile on Instagram and Twitter
Mhm.
that they do on Facebook and LinkedIn.
Yeah.
So in that case, what I would say is in your bio, have your link to your either Facebook page or LinkedIn page, whichever
Mhm.
one looks best.
Mhm.
I know that I'm gonna get back to you in just a
Oh,
minute.
go for it. You're good. You are good.
I just know that like for example, even my LinkedIn, my personal account on LinkedIn, I've been posting videos there. I've been posting my projects there.
Mhm.
So that if people go to just my LinkedIn account and they scan through just my LinkedIn profile, not even going to my page, they have a really good idea of all the different things that I'm involved in.
Mhm. Yeah, definitely.
Do you do that too?
I do. Yeah. Like this is just so seamless. I love it. I was gonna say, like, especially if you're looking for new business and you're in the middle of a contract or something, I would say just be careful what you post and be careful who can see what you're posting. For instance, I'll take myself. I have a personal Facebook account, I have my Facebook business account and
Mhm.
everything. And so if I'm using my personal page to post something that's like more casual or related to like my day-to-day life, and it's applicable to somebody I might be working with, like, hey, like going to New York for Fashion Week, I'm trying to figure out what I want to wear. That can be like fall into both categories, you know,
Right.
with the professional and the personal. But if it's just something like that I want to share with my friends or followers, I will set that up on Facebook. Like, okay, this post is just going to be for friends, and anybody that might be casually scrolling my feed, they might not need to see that. So just kind of being mindful of that. And then, like, you know, some things I might want to have public. So just thinking like, okay, what who is going to be the audience for this post?
Right.
And then going from there. So I would say that's number one. Number two, like you might have some brands or contracts that you might need to sign an NDA for, and just be responsible about that. Like, don't share anything, like even when it's
Right.
finished. I just asked a friend of mine that I did some work with. It's like, hey, like I know I signed an NDA for this part of it. Does that apply to everything? She's like, yeah, it does apply to everything. So, you know, make sure you read those contracts, like have a lawyer to read the contract if you need to, and just make sure everything is spelled out before you like even start doing work. You'll have all the understanding you need before you go into business with that brand, because it might be a brand that you like to use in your personal life, and you don't want to really like ruin that relationship. So just getting to be on the same page before even starting anything, and you know, make sure that they understand what's going on too. Like asking
Yeah.
questions is so important.
Oh my goodness, yeah, communication
Yeah.
is so very important, especially when you're posting stuff out to social media.
Mhm.
That and making sure that everything is spelled correctly.
Yes, that too.
which I learn often.
Yeah,
Um,
definitely.
so there was a question too about can you have a separate LinkedIn page for your company? And I'm going to quickly answer that. The
Yeah, go
quick
for it.
answer is yes.
Mhm.
So I actually have, for me on LinkedIn, I have my personal profile, and then I have, because I'm involved in 3 companies, I have 3 company pages.
Mm.
And so each one of them is branded very separately. There's my first company, which is She So Social, and where I work on online communications only. So I have the She So Social page on LinkedIn. And then I have an agents branding page because I have a business partner and we do branding specifically. And then I have a digital media sync page, which is the live stream that I do. It used to be every Tuesday, but now it's whenever my guests want to come on to the program and make sure that we promote it. So I have three business pages, which means 3 different brands.
Right.
Yeah.
Mhm.
So, and that's kind of the same with you with social
Yeah, it is.
media as well, right?
Mhm. Yeah, absolutely. Yep, a Facebook business page for my art and one for my style. Not so much the photography right now because that's still in its infancy, I think. Still
Mhm.
kind of finding my style and everything. Speaking of which, like I love to shoot black and white and I love to edit black and white. So that's been a lot of fun, and just using a Canon Rebel that my wife got that we use for our business. So yeah, just
Yeah.
been learning a lot from the photography and realizing, hey, like this is still kind of new. I enjoy doing it.
Yeah.
What's really taken off is the art and the menswear stuff. That's like really been my focus. And the photography, I think, is in there as well. But yeah, it's all still developing.
Cool. Did we cover everything? Because I know
think
we were
we did. We
answering.
covered a
I know we
lot.
covered a lot.
Let me
I'm
just
like,
check my notes too. To make
I
sure
know. I
don't
was like,
forget anything.
should I look at your notes?
Let's see. I guess I'll say too, the one thing I forgot is working with people in your field to achieve a common goal. Definitely gotta shout this person out. Big shout out to my friend Diego Leon, Dandy in the Bronx. We have done a lot of collaborations together. He's a menswear influencer, just big time, really doing his thing. And we have had projects where like I've illustrated him, for some of his photo shoots, and just gone to different events together and cross-pollinate and cross-promote.
Mhm.
But like finding, like working with your friends is great, and like we're just on the same page with like what the contract is going to be and how I can support him and vice versa. So again, it goes back to the communication and just being like really delicate, really careful. Like if you're working with somebody, like you consider a close friend.
Yeah, that's true. No, definitely. Communication is so key. So we really covered a lot. So I kind of want to wrap things up a little
Yeah,
bit and
no
kind of
problem.
summarize
Yeah.
where we
Lots to summarize.
because that was a lot. That was a lot to
Yeah.
summarize.
Yeah.
And so I'm gonna start and then just kind of like what I got from it, and then you
Sure.
can kind of like wrap it up from there.
Mhm.
So just to do that, I think what I heard
Mhm.
and what I'm learning too, because again, being an influencer means understanding your own personal brand first and foremost.
Mhm.
And it's just really getting that down. What are the things, and then that helps you understand the things that you're going to say yes to,
Yes.
and then also the things that you're going to say no to,
Mhm.
right? Because you don't want to say yes to everything,
That's right.
and then all of a sudden now your brand is diluted, and
Yeah.
it's like, what do you even stand for?
Right.
How can the brand trust you,
Mhm.
right? Which brings us to communication,
Mhm.
right? You have to constantly be in communication because this develops the relationship, like the long time relationships that you have had
Mhm.
with some of your, and then are they partners, are they clients? They're a little bit of,
Sometimes it's both.
yeah,
Like,
sometimes
a lot
it's,
of overlap.
yeah. So really developing what that looks like, and then continuously working. It seems like it's continuously working on your own personal brand as well.
Yeah.
And then continuously being able, it sounds like the brands that you work with, that you enjoy working with as an influencer, really allows you to be creative and be
Yes.
proactive.
Yes, definitely.
So, and there's still more questions. Oh my
All right.
goodness.
Wow. It's great. A lot of questions. I love it.
So it says, do you recommend, oh wait, I can't, can you read this? Wait a minute.
Do you recommend a branding lawyer? Oh,
to help
okay.
review contracts? Oh, that's a really good question.
I definitely would. I don't know any off the top of my head because to be honest, well, I have a friend in Detroit who I go to sometimes if I really need the advice.
Yeah.
I always try to like do my own contracts for instance, whenever possible.
Right.
And just put everything in layman's terms so everybody's on the same page.
Yeah.
But if I do have any questions, I'll reach out to this friend. And I'd say again, like Google is your friend. And just seeing if you can even have a consultation with somebody, and then again, building that relationship and seeing how you can benefit them. So yeah, like if you don't know anybody that can offer a legal advice, I'd say just start with a Google search, word of mouth, say, hey, I'm looking for somebody to help me review contracts, and just seeing what comes out of it, like just putting the call out there.
And I would say too, like, sometimes there's firms that are like strictly business firms, and there's many partners in that firm. I know that one firm that works right here, and does a lot of education and information as well as Martha Kalina is a firm that I just thought of up the top of my head, that I've actually sat in on many of their business law seminars and that sort of thing. So I would say when you're looking it up, look up business law,
Yeah.
of course,
Hmm.
and just, take a look at what they provide. I know that they also, I'm looking around because I think they've done stuff at the district as far as like webinars and
Mhm.
seminars and so forth. And I believe that they've done stuff here at the library as well.
Yeah.
So I would take a look at that.
Mhm.
But yeah, when I'm looking at a law firm, and especially from a business perspective and who I'm going to go to as far as, getting advice for myself or asking them to be guests, it's usually those firms that work with your business organizations, like are members of the chamber. So if you are here in New Haven, it's the Greater New Haven Chamber.
Mhm.
If it's elsewhere, it's other chambers, um, or other kind of like networking organizations where they're providing advice on a regular basis.
Mhm.
That's what I got.
That's great. Masterful.
So I'm like,
Do we have any more questions come up, or
I
should
don't-
we do a wrap up?
I think we're okay, and we also have like seven minutes.
Okay.
Yeah, that
All
was that went by like this. That
This
was
is
felt like
so
it was
much fun,
like
like,
10 minutes.
I will always come back to this. So, what I got out of it is just how important relationships are, and
Mhm.
building relationships and being transparent, being authentic, whether you're a brand or you're an influencer, being clear about expectations and what you hope to create with the person or persons, it's multiple people, and, just being accountable and holding the brand accountable also. Like,
Yeah.
oh, you said, I was going to get this invoice by this date and I don't have it. What can we do in the future? And so you're building that trust and you're building a relationship.
Yeah.
I've got a client that, I work with on a regular basis, a private client, and she can call me and say like, hey, I need some revisions for this project we're working on. And usually I don't do in-person meetings for revisions. But what I found is that if there's a lot of detail work, for instance, they might want to sit down with you and discuss ideas. And then, just saying, okay, like you're paying me for my time at this point, like you got a few revisions for free out of this project. Now it's going to be like whatever half of my hourly rate is, moving forward.
Moving
So
forward.
they know what's going on. It's like, okay, well, if I want any more changes than what we agreed to, like this is going to be the price. And I've been working with her for so long, it's just like that. Like she's somebody I don't really need a contract with, which is like very, very rare. Like most people, I just do a contract with everybody. But we've just got that familiarity and that relationship where it's like I know what her expectations are, and then vice versa. So again, just building that relationship, when you have a great relationship with a brand or a client, it makes everything just flow and just be so much easier.
That's great. Thank you so much for being here.
No
And I think
problem.
you
I loved it.
answered a lot of questions. I knew this was going to be an amazing topic too, because
Great.
it was something that I've always been interested in as far as like looking at it
Yeah.
and kind of dissecting what it is. And know from the flip side too, that people who have products and services and they are looking to be in a relationship with an influencer
Mhm.
so that their message can be broadened to their audiences. And I feel like this is going to be another conversation
I'm always
for
down to
another
have more.
time. It's like, what do you do to flip that around?
Yeah, part two.
Part two, like this was from the perspective of the actual influencer.
Mhm.
But when you're a brand or you're an up and coming brand, you're like, you know what? I need somebody to help me broadcast, to help me amplify what
Mhm.
my brand is.
Yeah.
And I'm thinking it's kind of difficult if you're not very established, but there, like you said, there are ways to work together,
Mhm.
whether it's not like a one-to-one transaction kind of payment type of thing, where it's product or service or that sort of thing. So we'll talk about that too.
Yeah.
Raheem, thank you so much for joining me
Thanks for having me,
here.
Giulia.
There's going to be more events throughout the next several weeks. I let you know what my office hours are. I'm Giulia Gambale. I am the entrepreneur in residence here at the New Haven Free Public Library. And thank you so much for joining us, and thank you for all your questions. Bye.